Welcome, everybody. Uh, Thank you all for joining. We're going to take some time to slowly let everyone trickle in. Made it to the Land Development Academy. We're going to be talking about Austin Water Reclaim Review. Wonderful Prachi is going to be presenting for us. We do have a couple minutes before we get started to let everyone join. If you'd like to grab your coffee, I don't have the mug with me. I have another mug with me, but if you haven't heard, there's a, is that it, Rebecca? The Land Development Academy mug. Yes. Those are still available for anyone who's not an employee, who's attended 2 sessions or more. Exception being if you are an employee who has presented for the Academy, yeah, then you can have, we'll get you a mug to thank you for presenting for us. So I think I got all the past presenters a mug, but if I missed you for some reason, no shame, let me know. I'll make sure I get that over to your desk. So, for anyone who hasn't met me yet, my name is Bianca Machuda, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist with the Austin Development Services Department. And thanks again for joining us for Land Development Academy. Today is part 2 of water reuse and reclaim, with the reclaim portion being today. Land Development Academy sessions offer a deeper look at the site plan review process from experts across the City of Austin departments who work with site plans. So, as you're coming in, if you are with a group of people, if there's more than one person attending under your name, go ahead and let us know in the chat how many people are with you, just so we have an accurate attendance count. And before we get started, I'll go ahead and review our engagement format. If we could go to the next slide. So we have 1 hour set aside for today's program, and we'll start with a presentation and close with question and answer. So while the presentation's happening, questions can be posted to the Q&A bank at any time. You can select that option at the bottom of your screen, or you can save your questions to the end for the Q&A portion. And at that point, you can also raise your hand and you can voice your question out loud. You'll be called upon and asked to unmute. If you have any trouble with any of the Zoom functions, feel free to chat one of the meeting hosts and we can troubleshoot anything. While we hope to be able to answer all of your questions, if there's anything that we don't have the information for, or if we just don't have time to get to your question, we will post a follow-up response and we'll get that out to all of the attendees in a summary. And also, our meeting is recorded, and you'll all receive a link to the presentation and the recording via email as soon as they're ready. So that is all I have for us. And now I will turn it over to Prachi Patel, who's going to present for us today.
Sweet. Thanks, Bianca. Thank you all for joining. I am Prachi Patel. I am a scheduler analyst with Austin Water. I work in the water reuse program group under Utility Development Services. And if your project is required to connect to Reclaimed or is voluntarily connecting to Reclaimed, you will probably interact with me and I'll be doing your site plan reviews. Briefly, what we're going to go over today is an overview of the reclaimed water connection requirements 2 weeks ago, y'all were able to see on-site water reuse requirements for site plan, and today we'll talk about Reclaimed, which is the city's purple pipe. We'll discuss some of the elements that are to be shown in the site plan application, some variances that are applicable, and then rebates. Even if you're mandated to connect to Reclaimed, there are rebate resources that Austin Water offers, and we'd like you to be well aware of it and take advantage of it. To provide a little bit of context, we're in Central Texas, and droughts and intense periods of heat are no strangers here. And so one of the things that does for a city that completely relies on surface water, which means we rely on the lakes, on the highland lakes for our water supply, and in intense period of droughts, there's no water flowing into those lakes. There's also intense heat, and we lose more water to evaporation sometimes than we do use as a city as a whole. And so Austin needs to learn to thrive when water supply is limited. So Austin Water, along with other organizations, worked on creating a 100-year water supply plan. And one of the strategies in that is Reclaim Water. The idea of that strategy is that over time, Austin uses non-drinking water quality for non-drinking uses. So for example, in these pie charts, you're looking at different time horizons. What kind of water supply is used for what kind of water use? In 2020, we see this very large gray portion, which is water demands that the city has for non-drinking water uses like toilet flushing, irrigation, etc. And that's being used by that's being supplied by clean drinking water. And so the idea is that with strategies like Reclaimed or on-site reuse, etc., over time, that gray portion of the pie reduces, and we have the purple portion be larger, which means we have non-potable supplies being used for non-potable demands and not clean drinking water just flushed down our toilets or irrigating our lawns. So that's just a little bit of context. And every development that is then therefore doing on-site water reuse or connecting to Reclaimed is contributing to Austin just being more resilient. So who is required to connect? Small projects. So there are like specific definitions of different types of projects in the code. But in general, a small project is a project that is smaller than 250,000 square feet of gross floor area. And so if you're 10,000 square feet, if you're 200,000 square feet, all of these qualify as a small project. And if you're that size, and if you're within 250 feet of a Reclaim line, then you have to connect to Reclaim for your irrigation, toilet flushing, and cooling demands if you have any. That distance increases to 500 feet if you're large, which means if you are 250,000 square feet or bigger. So in the map over here, we're seeing a little bit of a layout of the Reclaim lines. And then the light blue lots are the ones which are within 250 feet. So all projects in those light blue lots have to connect to Reclaimed for all their non-potable demands. And that distance increases to 500 for large projects. So that's the dark blue lots. And so if you're a large project falling within those, you still have to connect. How would you know if Reclaimed is near you? So Austin Water has created a GIS application called Records Access Application. You can look at where the Reclaim network is in there and check if your project is close to the Reclaim lines. And apart from that, you can also look at as-bills, intersection drawings, etc. All design firms in the city have access to this application. If you are starting to work on a project, please reach out to your supervisor or your GIS POC to be like, what is our login information for this application, so you can look at this very useful information. And if for some reason you don't have that, I have added a link at the bottom of this slide, which is a request form. Austin Water will vet and make sure that you are indeed a kind of firm that definitely should have access, and then we'll grant you access. Who is exempt from connecting? So some projects, the mandate just doesn't apply to them. And so these are certain types of affordable housing projects. These affordable housing projects, as code describes them, have more than 50% of their on-site units to be affordable. If they're rental units, then they are meant for 60% of MFI or lower. And if they're owner units, then they're supposed to be for 80 median family income and lower. To get this, so that the applicant and the reviewer are on the same page that this project is indeed exempt, the housing department is the one that will certify that this project actually meets the affordability requirements. And so if you think your project is exempt, I've added a link over here, and you will most likely get a PDF of this entire slide deck at the end of this presentation. So all the links will be in there for you. But there is a housing incentives application that you must submit to this address, and they will verify that your project meets the affordability requirements, and then provide a letter that looks like the screenshot here that says that the project is therefore exempt from connecting to Reclaimed. This letter should be included in the Austin Water General Notes sheet. If you have applied for site plans in the city, you're probably well aware of this. If not, no problem. We're going to go through it in a minute. And so you must include that in your site plan. And the last thing is that while we do not want affordable housing projects to be cost burdened, and therefore they're exempt from connecting to Reclaimed or having on-site water reuse, we do not want them to miss out on the benefits of the resilience that connecting to such a system would give. Therefore, affordable housing projects can qualify for up to $1.5 million in Go Purple rebates. We'll talk about them a little bit more further down this presentation. So elements in a site plan. The key sheets where you're going to see, or you're going to add information for your Reclaim connection in your project is the AW General Notes sheet, and then your utility plans where you're going to show your water and Reclaim lines. In the General Notes sheet, there are many elements, and we'll go through them in detail, that will be modified or will be affected if you're connecting to Reclaimed. I just want to make a quick note here that some projects are required to get a AULCC approval. That is, and this applies to whether you're connecting to Reclaimed or not. If you're making any improvements in the right-of-way while you're in the downtown area, or if you are having more than 300 feet of utility improvements in the right-of-way, then the AULCC review applies. This is a separate process from the site plan application process, and you will need that approval before the site plan gets approved. In this slide, there's also a link to their website, which details out the various processes you have to follow for it. We'll focus on the site plan in this presentation. So this is hopefully looking familiar. This is a CAD template of the AW General Notes sheet. It has charts and tables put down in ways that help us understand the specifics of your project. It has helpful tables like waiver summaries, infrastructure information, if you're adding what length of mains, whether water, wastewater, or Reclaim that you're adding, number of services, etc. And I'll go through some of these in detail. But for a Reclaimed review, where I would typically start is the second sheet of your AW General Notes sheet, where there is a placeholder for your Reclaimed SER. So if your project is going to apply for a service extension request for connecting to Reclaimed, then we want to make sure that an approved SER is included in the AW General Notes sheet. Sometimes applicants choose to do those simultaneously, but just note that the SER is ultimately going to tell our pipeline reviewers how the connection should be, what the sizing of the main should be. And so the site plan cannot be approved without an approved SER. And sometimes it's really difficult to review it also. The second part that is very important is the meter demand sheet. The meter demand sheet typically helps us understand that the project is meeting code and all fixtures that should be connected to Reclaimed are actually getting connected. And then therefore what the sizing of the private infrastructure can be, and it's a great sizing tool also. We had a process up till now where the applicant fills this out and then sends it over to us via email. We review it, approve it, and then they include the signed and approved sheet in the AW General Notes sheet. It adds an extra step that is cumbersome, and we want to make it easier for you so that you are able to just include all the information and not have to go through the separate email step. We have very recently made changes to that meter demand sheet, and we are going to demonstrate that today to walk you through what you would need for reclaimed, but also for on-site water reuse. I'm going to pause here and let Rebecca Batchelder take over and do a demonstration of that demo, of that meter demand sheet.
Okay, am I unmuted? All right, perfect.
Yes, you
So
are.
this is it. Thank you, Prachi. So yes, I hinted at this in my presentation 2 weeks ago when I was talking about site plans for on-site water reuse projects, because this is the same meter demand sheet that we would use for that as we use here for reclaimed. So like Prachi said, this is hot off the presses, reworked. If you've worked on a project that had on-site reuse or reclaim before, you've filled something out that's similar to this, but we've made some updates both to remove the signature requirement as well as just to kind of make it do its job a little better. It's doing a lot of jobs for us here because it's for reclaim projects. It's supposed to work for on-site water reuse projects and fee and lieu projects, which are all kind of a little bit different. So the first thing that you will notice is that when you open up this new sheet, and it's on our website, same place it was before, but when you open up this sheet and you start filling things in, a lot of cells are going to update. Your inputs are going to update, your options are going to update as you start entering in information. As well as this section on the left here, this green section, that's gives you some tips and tricks and some error messages occasionally. So again, all of that is updating. And I definitely recommend sort of starting with a fresh sheet every time, so you're not starting with a sheet that has old entries in it, because again, those are going to get updated and it gets a little confusing. So here we have a fresh new sheet, and I'll just sort of walk you through filling it out for a reclaimed project, and then I'll highlight a couple of things that might be different if it's a on-site water reuse or a fee and lieu project. So all the yellow cells are where you're going to be filling things in. Make sure not to miss any. So we're going to start with the type of project that we're doing. Again, we have options here for reclaimed. On-site water reuse has two. Almost everybody would be doing the AC condensate rainwater. We have very few gray water or black water projects, and they are handled a little bit differently, so we needed to separate those out. And then we have the fee and lieu. So in this case, we're doing the reclaim project, and you'll see a bunch of things updated when I selected that. For the project type, this just has to do with whether you're commercial or residential or city, parkland. It impacts your billing. So just select whichever one applies to you. Let's call this commercial. Okay. And then is it required? That again will impact billing issues. So select whether you are required. We do have some projects that voluntarily connect, so you would say no if you're voluntarily connecting. So we'll be required. Then we'll come in here and select what we are connecting to. So we're connecting to indoor uses. We're connecting to irrigation. And let's just say here that there is no cooling tower. So we're not going to fill anything out about a cooling tower. So that's just the general project info. Then we'll come down to the fixtures, indoor fixtures. And this is where we confirm that you are connecting your reclaimed or on-site water reuse non-potable water to the right fixtures. So you are going to select which table here that you're going to use to calculate the fixture units, the water fixture units. And there's a little tip on that, which, under which circumstances you would use different tables from the UPC to calculate your fixture count. So select the one that works for your project. And then you'll come in here and just enter the fixture counts for your project. So I'll just enter a few of these in here. Let's go with a couple of these. And some of them you'll see have purple. So the clothes washer is purple, the urinals are purple, and the water closets are purple. So all the things that could theoretically be met with a non-potable source are marked in purple. However, just because they can be met doesn't mean you necessarily want to mark them as non-potable over here. So in column K is where we mark what water source each fixture will be met with. Some of them are white, which means you can't change them. All the potable sources must be met with potable supplies. These yellow ones are the ones where you have an option to change. In most cases, you're not changing for the clothes washers. Clothes washers are a little bit more complicated to supply with non-potable. There's some backflow issues. So it is possible, and you can talk to us about that if you're interested, but in most cases, we just leave that as potable. But we will come down here, and for our toilets, we're going to change those to reclaimed. And if I've selected that I'm doing on-site water reuse, I will be selecting on-site water reuse down here. You'll see the options update. So you notice that as you do that, it updates your total fixture counts here at the bottom, where you have potable fixture counts, water fixture units, and reclaimed water fixture units. So this is where we're going to confirm that you're connecting the right thing, the right sources to the right demands. The last box in this section has to do with additional details that you might have if you have, say you're only connecting your commercial toilets to reclaimed and you have a mixed use development. So you could describe that here. That just helps us understand and helps reviewers understand what to look for in your plans. If you're not connecting 100% of your toilets to reclaimed, then in this box here, you have a little space to explain why. And then you can also use these extra cells here to add some additional fixtures. So if these end up being your commercial toilets and urinals that are connecting to reclaimed, you can add those here. And then if you have residential ones, you could add that here if you wanted residential, toilet. And then over here, you would select potable if you're not connecting that one to reclaimed. In this case, we don't have any other sources. We're going to connect all of our toilets to reclaimed. So that wraps you up for this section. You might get an error message if you've sort of used a sheet you had already filled out that has another option here. So just make sure that the options you've selected here reflect the type of project. It can't say OWRS as your source when you're doing a reclaimed project. Or if you're doing a reclaimed project, it shouldn't say OWRS in this box. But if you're starting with a fresh sheet every time, that shouldn't be an issue. Now you're going to come down here for peak demands. This is where you convert your water fixture units to a peak demand using the appropriate methodology per plumbing code. So you're going to enter that in here. You're going to do your indoor potable domestic. That will be a conversion of this number here, the potable fixture units. You'll convert that to a peak demand. Then you'll come down to your indoor reclaimed fixtures. That's 77.5, and you'll put the appropriate corresponding peak demand for that number of water fixture units. For irrigation, you just enter in what your irrigation designer provides you, whatever you anticipate your peak demand being for irrigation. And for a reclaimed site, that's pretty much all you have to do, but what you'll end up with is something that should be helpful to you in your project, which is this little chart down here should automatically update. And after I've entered in the information, let me put these in here. So this was for peak flow. This ends up being 29, and this ends up being 37. And so now you'll see here, this table is set up to reflect the meter notice table in your Austin Water general notes sheet. So you'll see it has a section for potable meters, a section for reclaimed meters, and a section for potable backup to OWRS meters. And this will help you understand which meters your project should have. Let's put irrigation in here too. We'll do 20 here. So here it shows that these are the 3 meters that you're going to need for your project. Particularly on on-site water reuse projects, people can get a little bit confused as to what type of meters they need for their project. So this should reflect all the types of meters that you need. And then we have this stuff about billing that is just for our use, and you don't have to mess with it at all. So that takes you through. There are a few considerations when you are doing OWRS or fee in lieu. I won't go into all of that right now, but it should be relatively intuitive. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to me or Prachi, and we can help you get the right buttons clicked. So I'll go ahead and stop there and pass it back to Prachi.
Thanks, Becca. All right. All right, is it showing my presentation again? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much, Becca. And so just to recap what Becca just showed us, so that your meter demand sheet, you want to select the type of water, so reclaimed water when it comes to reclaimed projects, select the applicable type, whether it's commercial or multifamily. Answer the question whether you're mandated to connect to reclaimed or if it's a voluntary connection. If it is mandatory, chances you probably need to answer yes for all the applicable demands. If you don't have cooling tower, then you can just say NA over here. You input this cell for sure, which is going to help you select the method for calculating your fixture units. Add fixture counts right here and select reclaim for your toilet flushing and urinal use. It'll automatically summarize your water supply fixture unit counts over here, and your MEP will be well aware on how to then convert that into gallons per minute demand down here. The irrigation and cooling tower demand would be inputted by your MEP by their calculations. And as Becca demonstrated, it would then therefore make this summary chart for you. And so that's all you need for your meter demand table. And you go ahead and include that in your AW general notes sheet. The next thing you want to look at is your meter notice table. So the meter notice table is where you're going to actually size your meters and request the kind of meters you want. From your previously filled out meter demand sheet, you have this summary chart that's showing you how much potable domestic demand, reclaimed domestic demand, and reclaimed irrigation demand your project has. So based on that GPM, you want to request appropriately sized meters. So for example, over here, if it says potable domestic, up here in the potable section of the meter notice table, this applicant is requesting a 3-inch compound meter. Make note that you must always have an address with your meter. And there are other details, for example, the max GPM that the meter can handle, and then service units attached with that meter. A service unit is a way to assess impact fees that the project is adding to the impact that the project is adding, and therefore the impact fees that are levied on the project. We will have similar information for reclaimed domestic and reclaimed irrigation in this section. And just note that reclaimed projects do not have any service units associated with them. Reclaimed meters do not have any service units associated with them, which means that they do not pay impact fees on the reclaimed meters. That should save your project quite a bit of money. And also, presumably, your portable meter is sized a little bit smaller because some of the demand is being met by the reclaimed domestic meter, and therefore you're also paying less impact fees on your portable meter. And so while the project is benefiting the community and making it more resilient by using reclaimed water, this is one of the advantages it gets that another project that's not connecting to Reclaim would not get. And then this meter notice table would also be in your AW General Notes sheet. So that information comes here. This is the first page of your AW General Notes sheet. Apart from those two, there's also the infrastructure table, the LUE tracking table. So for example, if you have a reclaimed SER and then multiple site plans within that SER, then you can track over here the LUEs that are being assigned to which particular site plan. There is also other helpful information and tables in case your project has multiple buildings. Then it helps you track which meter is going to which building, and it helps the reviewers track that, and then ultimately inspectors and whoever is like maintaining the system afterwards. There's also the project information table that includes demand data for indoor, outdoor, for reclaimed, etc. And you want to make sure that your meter demand table, your project information table, and your meter notice table are all consistent. This is a very common error that folks make, and an unnecessary reason to get your site plan rejected. To track all of that, we have created some resources for you. So there is Austin Water's pipeline engineering webpage. The link is up here. You will get that in your slide deck, in which there is checklists and general construction notes. The CAD template of that general notes sheet is available there. There's also a very helpful resource for an FAQ that walks you through how to fill out each table and avoid any common errors. The meter demand sheet that we went through is also linked right there. And there's also the meter sizing table that helps you size appropriate meters. In addition to that, there's also a wealth of other information, and please feel free to peruse that. All right. So this is your project connection setup diagram, and this is probably, there's a lot of information on this slide. So as we've gone through this information before, a project connecting to Reclaimed will end up having a portable domestic meter going to its portable fixtures. It'll have a separate reclaimed domestic meter going to its non-portable fixtures, and then it'll have a reclaimed irrigation meter. So it'll have those 3 meters. The separation distance between portable and non-portable will be 5 feet. Because the project is using a non-portable source, there is a need to protect the city's water supply from any contamination. For that reason, there are backflow prevention requirements. And so immediately downstream of your domestic, portable domestic meter, you have to put a RPZ. The reclaimed domestic meter, if it's only going to toilet flushing systems, does not require any backflow prevention. And then the reclaimed irrigation will have a double check valve assembly, which is very common even for portable irrigation systems. So you want to make sure that your backflow prevention is there. You want to make sure your separation distances are there. In addition to that, there are also color requirements to separate your portable system from your non-portable system. On the public side, the reclaim main, the code is in the UCM 2.9.3.b.1, where it says that all appurtenances and mains would be manufactured, factory painted, or striped with the Pantone 522 purple. So the idea is if you have a reclaim line or you have a reclaim service, you want to make it purple so that when you're looking at a drawing set at a time, you can tell that this is what it's connected to reclaimed. But if someone digs up a portion over here and they see a line, they should not accidentally connect any portable lines over there. It's an industry-wide standard, and it just helps keep everyone safe and healthy. On the private side, those color requirements are in the plumbing ordinance. And so the portable side will have a green labeling on it. It says potable water, and it'll show the direction of the water flow. And then the reclaimed will have non-potable reclaimed water on it saying do not drink and the direction of the water flow. Your reclaimed irrigation system, the entirety of the system should have purple heads, purple all over it, and sort of signs that say this is reclaimed water and do not drink it. And then there's a added note that for below grade piping, the required information should be indicated every 5 feet. And so this is all with abundance of caution and to make sure that while we are trying to be sustainable, we are also keeping health and safety as the priority. Another thing that helps keeps our community safe when projects are connecting to Reclaimed is the cross-connection testing. So cross-connection testing is it is a requirement for any project using alternative water source, be it Reclaimed or any other water source. So that test is required upfront when the project is set up, and the test is required ongoing, meaning like once a year after. What it essentially does is makes sure that the potable system is only connected to the potable fixtures and the non-potable system is only connected to the non-potable fixtures. Y'all are in the development side of the world. It is not uncommon that a project is designed and built, and then somebody maybe chooses to expand or renovate. And in that time, we just want to make sure that no errors are made in tapping into the wrong system on the private side. And so the cross-connection test helps us avoid that. The standard code required test requires completely shutting down one side. So say you shut down the purple side and there's water on the blue side, and then water should only be coming out of the blue fixtures. And then you switch over. You completely shut down and depressurize the blue side, and then water should only be coming out of the purple side. If it doesn't, then the test has failed and something needs to be fixed. Hopefully none of your projects ever end up having that. But as you can imagine, if you're going to depressurize an entire system, your plumbing system, it's going to shut down your building for a significant amount of time. And if you're a large project, it might take a day or more. We don't want that. And for that reason, there is a possibility to apply for something called an alternate method of compliance for your cross-connection testing. On our website, we have a resource that walks you through, like guides you through, and this is a screenshot from it, where it tells you the various kinds of common alternate methods of compliance, how they work, when to use them, what to show in your site plan when you're using that, and then what to show in your building plan review drawings if you're using that AMOC. But this alternate method of compliance, you want it approved at the onset of your project at site plan stage, and then include that approved alternate method of compliance in your AW general notes sheet. The brief idea of what this AMOC might look like, one of the common methods if you are using water indoors is dye testing. So you have a tank where there is, you can put in dye, and that dye injection can go into your reclaimed water system. It turns like a bright yellow neon color, and you want to and it's a visual way of confirming that this bright neon yellow water is only coming out of your non-potable fixtures and not in your drinking water. And that way you can keep your building running and also successfully do your cross-connection testing. There's also a common test called the one-sided shutdown. This is typically used when a project is only using Reclaim, let's just say, for irrigation. Then the potable yard lines will be sort of like, will have like a compacted backfill over them. It's a way to like physically stop people from connecting into that potable yard line. Like say they're going to do like an irrigation expansion or something like that, then people are not going to connect to it. And so that's a one-sided shutdown recommended for irrigation. Another thing that you will definitely want to be aware of is separation distances. There will be a lot of utilities in the right of way. And so from Reclaimed, the code requirements for these separation distances are in the Texas Administrative Code, and then there are some modifications in the utility criteria manual for the city. And so what it boils down to is about 5 feet of distance from potable, another utility, or wastewater. And then the vertical separation distances, for Reclaimed, you want it to be under potable. For wastewater, you want it to be at par or under Reclaimed. And then for other utilities, the vertical separation distances can be 18 inches above or 12 inches below, depending on the type of utility it is. All right, code prescribed variances. Some projects, apart from the affordable projects that don't have to, that are exempt from the requirements completely, code does recognize that sometimes it might not be possible for a project to connect to Reclaimed. The two kinds of projects that can apply for a variance is if you're a small project, that means you're smaller than 250,000 square feet, then you can apply for a financial hardship variance. And then the other kind of variance, whether you're small or large, if you're a use associated with health and safety, like a hospital or something like that, then you can apply for a variance. There is a variance application form, and it'll be shown on our webpage. This table is just showing the common kinds of costs and savings that you're going to be showing if you're applying for a financial hardship variance. For health and safety, if you are able to say that we are a hospital, etc., then you get the variance gets granted. That means that project then doesn't have to connect to Reclaimed. This is just a screenshot of what that financial hardship variance looks like. And so it has helpful, and it's a worksheet. You can work live on it. And it has helpful information of just like identifying your project and just some contact information. And over here, it's asking you what type of variance you're applying for. The first option is the financial hardship variance. And if you're choosing that one, then you have to fill out this cost table and then this savings table. In the cost table, you include information on how much of the reclaimed main you're extending and what the cost per linear foot is, how much of the yard line, so the private line you're installing, and what the cost per linear foot is for that. It also includes estimates for costs that will get added to the project because of additional cross connection and backflow prevention testing. Of course, if you are connecting to Reclaimed on the private side, you will have a separate plumbing system for your toilet flushing. That's called dual plumbing. And so the spreadsheet helps you estimate how much additional cost will come from dual plumbing. There are inbuilt assumptions in the spreadsheet. And if at any point you're like, no, actually, my project is going to have a higher cost burden, you can always include that information here for the reviewer. And then there are some other portions that you can include. And you'd also include what the total upfront construction cost for the project is. On the savings side, you typically include what your water savings are each year. This is something all site plans submit a water benchmarking application in which they just input common site data information, building gross floor area, roof area, etc. And it estimates for them what their potable and non-potable demands would be upfront. From that benchmarking application, you will input the gallons here, and the spreadsheet will automatically calculate for you what your utility bill savings are. Also, from the meter demand sheet that we filled out earlier, you'd be able to put in over here what meters and meter sizes you would request if the project was not connecting to Reclaimed and if the project does connect to Reclaimed. And essentially what this portion does is help you estimate what your impact fee savings would be if you were connecting to Reclaimed. There's also an additional section for submetering relief. So if you're a multifamily project, you might know that you are required to submeter for each of your units. However, if you connect to Reclaimed, you're not required to submeter. And so this portion accounts for that saving. And then ultimately, we would look at the cost and the savings, and then our supervising engineer would review and either grant the variance, so you don't have to connect to Reclaimed, and if there is not a significant financial hardship, then they would reject it. And so that would be noted here. All right, this is the last piece, rebate resources. So even if you are required to connect to Reclaimed, there are rebates that Austin Water offers. This is the link to our Obtaining Reclaimed Water webpage. And in that, you will find a portion that's called What are the incentives to use Reclaimed Water? And all the incentives are listed here. Even when you're required to connect to Reclaimed, if you are extending more than 250 feet of reclaimed main, then you can apply for this reclaimed main extension incentive. It basically pays up to $500,000 for every qualifying project for the cost that they're incurring for extending the main. So a portion of anything beyond the first 250 feet or all of the portion of beyond 250 feet would be rebated by Austin Water. There's also the expedited building plan review. So if you are required to connect to Reclaim and then you are applying for the expedited building plan review, the project at Austin Water will pay up to $36,000 per qualifying project for the review fees. In addition to that, there is a dual plumbing rebate application. So this is on the private side, and only affordable housing projects are eligible for this, but Austin Water will pay up to $1 million per qualifying affordable project for the costs incurred for the dual plumbing systems. There is a PACE financing study link right here, but essentially PACE is a program that is administered by the county, and it offers developers low interest loans for adding any kind of energy sustainability or water sustainability designs. And so the low interest loan is offered by the county, and it sort of like allows the project to have that low interest loan upfront, but then you can apply it over the years when you are done constructing the project, and then you've like sold it to somebody else, or someone else is renting it. And so it can it is associated with the property, and so it can be used over a long period of time, or it can incur benefits over a long period of time. If you're interested in this low interest loan and need any help, we are happy to assist with it. And then the last one is for voluntary customers that are they're like retrofits. It's typically projects that are, we built a new reclaim line and the project is wanting to convert its potable irrigation system to reclaimed because reclaimed water is cheaper. Then there is this rebate application where up to 100,000 of the cost incurred will be rebated. So those are all the rebates we have. We really hope you take advantage of them. This slide is just me sort of like summarizing the various parts of the code that you can reference for a successful site plan application, and some of the web resources that I discussed today are listed in these two sites. And it's just, going to be useful when you get the slide deck later. With that, we're happy to take any questions you have.
Thanks, Prachi. Wonderful presentation. So much detail. Not sure how many folks, I think everyone in this room is pretty familiar with the content. We've only got one question so far, but I'd like to remind us that this is the time for questions. If you have any that you'd like to voice, you can use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, or if you'd like to continue using the Q&A bank, you can type your questions in. That Q&A bank can be found. There's an icon at the bottom of your screen that has a little speech bubble with a question mark, and it says Q&A. So I'll go ahead and start toggling between those two formats, and I'll start with our question from the Q&A bank. Let's see. So our first question is about the dye injection method that was on slide 23. Is there a detail for cross-connection tests to put on plans that would be similar to what's being shown here?
There is not a standard detail for the dye injection. It's essentially like the designer will most likely figure out what's a good location for them to put in the dye in the non-potable system. But this diagram is basically trying to explain somewhat what that looks like, where you might have like a tank where you're able to mix the dye, and then like a pump that helps you put that colored water and the colored dye into the reclaimed water. In your site plan or in your building plan, depending on where you plan to make the injection, you might just want to make a call out of like, this is where we are planning to inject the dye into the system. But it would be on the designer, and there is not a standard detail to do it because there are multiple ways of doing it.
Good. We've got some freedom in that, and I guess all the systems are probably different and very unique, so that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Our next question, are the 5-foot separation distances for the public line only, such as the lines in the right-of-way and easements? And
yes.
do private lines need to meet those separation distances as well?
I might want to check in with our site plan plumbing folks and get back to you on that question. But my understanding is that these 5-foot separation distances are only on the public side, so in the right of way.
Okay, we can come back to that and clarify in our summary at the end. Well, it'll be going out to our attendees via email. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And another question, how is the building square footage calculated? There are various methods now, and some include the garage and some don't.
Mhm. So your gross floor area is determined by, the site plan review folks over at DSD. So what you input in your site data table is your gross floor area. A unoccupied space like a garage is typically not included in the gross floor area. So all the square footage that you would include in your FAR calculations is what gets included um, for gross floor area, and it's the same number that the DSD team uses, and we use the same number. So the information that you would have to put in your site data table as occupiable area is what you're going to is what is going to determine your GFA.
All right, that was our last written question. And I don't see any hands up, but we'll give it a couple more minutes. If you could go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so we still can take a question if anything comes through, but if not, I just want to do our little wrap up here to just respect everyone's time. Please let us know what you thought about today's engagement. If you haven't completed the survey yet, let us know what you thought. And you can always go to the Land Development Academy webpage to register for our next class, which is also sort of water related. We're going to be talking about drainage requirements for infill development, residential infill development, and that's going to be on March 11th. So I think I don't see any other questions coming up, so that'll conclude our meeting today. Again, all of our attendees are going to receive the meeting materials via email as soon as they're ready. And just want to thank everyone again for being here. If you have any other questions that come up, there's the email address there that you can get in contact with Prachi and Rebecca. And yeah, thanks for the presentation, Prachi. Do you or Rebecca have any closing words you'd like to share?
No, not at all. Only that we're glad you were here, and we hope that the site plan process is a little bit easier having seen this information. But please reach out if you need anything.
Thanks, everyone. Until next time.